IB countdown to kickoff. First time we've got to say it this year. Guys, we've made it. The season is almost here. We're like, as we sit here and talk right now, we're just a little bit more than a day away. Notre Dame, Texas A&M, kicking off 2024. Vince D'Addario, Jesse Stiers. I'm Sean Stiers. Can you believe that we're finally here?
I thought we were doing a show for the Backyard Brawl. So I didn't realize that's right. That's high school football that's going on. But no, I'm super excited about the Notre Dame game, and I think I put it in the predictions that were just posted. Finally we're here, and I'm always excited about the home opener, the opener. Excuse me, not the home opener, but the opener. But it feels like it took us forever to get here. Like, we've been talking about this game for over 8 months for the most part, right? I mean, yes, we've been talking about the whole season, but really it starts with this game. And it's like, thank you. We're finally here. We get to actually talk about football that is occurring on the field. Like, I was riveted watching football Thursday night, man. Like, finally some college football to watch. And then last weekend, obviously, but watching Colorado almost blow it was a lot of fun. So, I am so ready. And there's a pretty decent slate of football tomorrow, capped off with Notre Dame. So I'm excited.
There is.
I think the part I'm most excited about is we finally can get out of dealing with hypotheticals and get into some absolutes for what we can actually see on the field, not what we think the offense is going to look like, what the offensive line is going to look like, how the defense is going to look with the new linebacker core. I deal in absolutes. I like the concrete. Give me, this is the cold hard facts, like this is what I've been waiting for all off season.
Jesse is a math man. He's an analytical man.
That's right.
So, that's kind of the way it is. He
deals in absolutes.
That's right. He deals in absolutes. We at least try to deal in facts, I guess. But I'm with you guys, both from the excitement level and from there've just been, like, especially where we are right now, the closer as this week has sort of inched along.
Yeah.
All the predictions are coming out. There's anger about who's predicting who to win and, yelling back and forth and all this stuff. Look, I'll just say this. I don't always predict Notre Dame to win. I'm picking them to win this game. I'll give you the score at the end of this show. We all will. I don't always pick them to win if I don't think they're going to win. So I'm not just picking them, to make people happy. That's not the way we roll, but people are cranky right now. We need this game. We need football. And, like you said, we've got dabbles of other people's football back in the picture, but we'll have a full slate of football tomorrow. Nice little premier kickoff at noon with Clemson and Georgia and, smattering of other games throughout the day. It's going to be fun with Notre Dame and Texas A&M, because that's part of this too. We still have to wait all day Saturday.
I know, right?
But all that means is people have more time to listen to the show, basically. So
I like your glasses half full attitude.
Jess, I'll start with you on this one. Give me one word to describe Notre Dame football right now.
Extreme optimism, I think.
That's 2 words. I knew he would try to find a way to bend around it. He deals in facts, but anytime I say give me one of anything, he gives me multiples.
Jeez.
I gave an adjective to hype up my one word.
Okay.
Again, for me, it's optimism, because I think this season there's a lot on the line, and I think this is a season where Notre Dame can definitely, like we've all talked about ceiling, they're very capable of going 12-0 this season. And I think that they have their best shot, to make the playoff and make some noise in the playoff as well. Not only get there, but actually make, some sort of run. Compared to last season when they had a really good defense and, an offense that didn't support, I think it's crucial this year that the offense steps up. So that's where the optimism comes, that the offense can be kind of on that same level as a defense and have the caliber to go on to a championship.
I got a good one, I think.
Okay.
Precipice. I think
He's
this team
fancy.
I know, right? It's probably because I'm back in school, like I'm feeling it. But I think this team is on the precipice of something special. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to go win a national championship. I'm not ready to go down that road. Okay, give me at least 8-9 weeks of seeing this team play, and then maybe we'll have that conversation. But I do think this team is going to be really good. I think this offense is going to be better than a lot of people think. I think this defense, a lot of people think it's going to be really good, and I agree. But you put those two things together along with, at the very least, competent special teams, which I think some people think it's going to be way more than that, but I'm tempering the excitement. And then with the coaching and the two coordinators and all of these different things, and you throw that all into the melting pot, I think this team can do something special. So I really do think it starts on Saturday with this game. And I think, it's a top 20 matchup. A lot of people think Notre Dame's going to lose. Okay, cool. That's fine. But I think that they are going to make a statement one way or the other on Saturday. And I think I forget who it was. I saw it on the message board. I think it was Joe Klatt said there's going to be people talking about Notre Dame on Monday. And I think that's accurate. I really do. I think they're going to make
he's one of the few national talking heads that's kind of taking that stance right now. But I think not to cut you off, but I do feel like there's been some general laziness by some of the more prominent talking heads and how they're analyzing this game. I think they're giving there's just kind of a superficial surface kind of view of this thing. I don't think they're looking really deep at this.
Well, and they're reading like the Lindy's 2 paragraphs or something like that, and they think they know everything about this team. And look, I'm not saying that every national writer needs to have intimate knowledge of every single Division I team, but Notre Dame's a top 10 team. Like, dig a little bit deeper with a team that you're probably going to be.
They're a top 10 team with a top 10 defense with a ton of veterans on that side of the ball, and it's literally like that side of the ball doesn't exist for Notre Dame for a lot of these people. I'm wild. Like, what? Where is this coming from?
Yeah, it's wild. I think Joe Klatt actually does a good job of learning the teams and learning kind of what's going on. I don't always agree with him, but I do think he is knowledgeable in what he says. And I'm not just blowing him up because he and I agree in this particular case, but I think Notre Dame is on the precipice of doing something kind of special this year, whether that's winning a few games in the playoff or, whatever the case may be. This is going to be a fun team to watch and a fun team to follow, and I'm excited about it.
My word's a little more boring. Mine is deep. It's the deepest roster, I think, that I can remember. Like when you look just across the board. Now, there are some particular spots, offensive line, obviously, how deep that is. Like, could they sustain another injury? They could sustain another injury to the interior lineman, but to one of the tackles, and you're probably getting, as we've said before, you've got 23 starts sitting on the sideline, for the interior offensive line. So there's depth in some places there, but just, whether it's quarterback, running back, wide receiver, which again, it feels like is completely overlooked with the receivers that they've added via the transfer portal. And obviously Riley Leonard, the quarterback room, the defensive line, the secondary. Linebacker's a question, but there's depth and young talent there. So there's just depth across the board. Let me ask you guys this. Do you like having a game of this magnitude, 2 ranked teams going head-to-head to start off the season?
I like it because – sorry, Vince, not to steal your thunder.
You're good, brother.
I like it because, one, you get a very clear picture up front, kind of, maybe some of the strengths and weaknesses of a team. I think a lot of these teams who play, look across the board for some of these teams that some of the, like Ohio State's playing Akron. Are you really going to have an idea of who you are as a team after you beat Akron by 40 points to open your season? I like the idea of knowing kind of where you stand early on. And I think another, advantage is if you lose this game, it's game 1. It's not game 11. It's not game 12, game 10, towards the end of the season where you want to be playing your best football. So it doesn't hurt you as much having, a potential loss in this kind of game early on. You can still rattle off 11 wins, 10 wins, whatever it might be, and still feel good about your chances towards the playoff at the end of the season. People forget about your losses earlier in the season. I think they hold more weight with a lot of people when you experience a loss towards the end of the season. So I like it for those reasons.
I'm on the fence about this one, if I'm being honest. I as a fan, it's obviously fun to look forward to a big game and being in prime time and, all of those different things. As a coach, it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to have any problem getting my guys up for this game, obviously. But I wouldn't mind having a bit of a tune-up as well, depending on what your definition of a tune-up game is, right? Navy last year was kind of a tune-up game. I mean, let's be honest. Navy isn't the Navy of old. And, I don't think any of us thought that Navy was going to win that game. And, Notre Dame was going to be able to do some things, right?
Also probably raised everyone's expectations on what Sam Hartman was going to be.
That's fair too. Yeah, that's a solid point, Sean.
You get a false sense of hope when you just beat up on someone and then you expect that to kind of continue through the season.
Because there are both sides of the fence, it's like, you could use like an Akron or Toledo or whoever it happens to be to open up the season and work some things out and find some things out. But you also don't put them on film. There's nothing that you put on film that way. And if you're going to play another ranked team right off the bat, I guess there's nothing wrong with the element of surprise. Both teams are going to see some surprises Saturday night.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. Like a year from now, when this offensive line has like 80 starts to its credit, I might feel a little bit better about having a big game like this right out of the gate. You know what I mean? But with this offense, I know we're going to get into the offensive line, but with 6 starts under their belt, I wouldn't mind an Akron or somebody like that to at least kind of get the cohesion of this offensive line against somebody. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I think it varies year to year. And obviously when you make schedules in football at the collegiate level, you're making them so far out in advance, you have no idea what your team is going to be, So at the end of the day, to answer your question, which I really haven't done yet, I love it. I think it's great. As a coach, I hate it.
Like there's a little bit of a feel. It's not the same as Notre Dame, Michigan, obviously, but Notre Dame and Michigan, like back in the like late 80s, early 90s, used to open up the season against each other. And it was basically like you knew who was going to have a big season right away, depending on who won that game. And most of them came down to the wire, it seemed like, but they were always ranked and so there's a little bit of that kind of feel. I will say again, just like going back to how this game is being treated. This is a good Texas A&M team, but it's also a Texas A&M team, with a new head coach and a new coaching staff and a lot of questions. They brought in 26 players from the transfer portal. That works out to varying degrees, obviously, when you've got to go add that many guys. Notre Dame obviously is no stranger to the portal, but they're very strategic with who they're going to get, and they've done a good job the last couple of years. But it just like it feels like this is not Ohio State, this is not Georgia, this is not Alabama or even Clemson, one of those teams. This is a good team, but people are treating this like it is one of those elite teams that Notre Dame is going on the road to play. It feels like to me.
Yeah, I think that you make a good point because, if you're Notre Dame, I think this is more advantageous for them compared to Texas A&M. Texas A&M has a new coaching staff, new offensive coordinator. They have a lot more to figure out compared to Notre Dame, who's in year 3 and kind of have more, I would say, of the foundation built, right? And the flip side is, if you're Notre Dame and you win this game, you kick off the season right. Like Vince was saying, Joel Klatt, amongst others, they're going to be talking about this game on Monday. So you want that attention for beating a team that might not quite be there in terms of where everyone believes they are nationally, right? Because they're going to get there, I think, by the end of the season. So I think it's fair to take advantage of a Texas A&M team that's ranked, that everyone thinks is going to beat you, because it allows Notre Dame to springboard off of it more, essentially.
Right. And again, it feels like, because this is an SEC team, like more, and because you've got probably the addition of Mike Elko, it just feels like more is being given to Texas A&M than what they have shown they deserve. We all expect this is going to be a close, hard-fought game, but I just don't see it with this sort of cloak of invincibility like some people are making it out to be. How big a factor do you think Notre Dame's coaching continuity is, though, Vince? Because again, like this, in this matchup specifically, going into a game like this is year 3 for Marcus Freeman. Just a couple of moves made in the offseason for the as this has gone on into year 3, he has an entire staff of guys that he has hired now, and obviously adding Mike Denbrock. They go back together to their Cincinnati days. So does Gino Guidugli. So does Mike Brown. So does Mike Mickens. So there's just a ton of continuity. How much, how big a factor do you think that is?
I think it's more of a factor behind the scenes with communication and, making adjustments, things like that. Look, Al Golden is known for his in-game adjustments before halftime. Mike Denbrock is known for those things. And I think the communication from the assistants to the coordinators to the head coach, I think it's going to be really good. I mean, these guys know each other. They've been, I don't like using like war battles and things like that, analogies, but they've been to battle together a lot, right? And so they know what to expect from each other. Look, there's going to be some wrinkles that they've got to get figured out, obviously, when it comes to like, the in-helmet communication and some things like that. But the coach communication, I think they're going to be right on point. I think it's going to be better than it's ever been, frankly. And I think trust and comfortability from a head coaching standpoint is so important when you're a head coach. And he's getting into year 3. He's got the most comfort he's ever had with his assistant coaches. And I'm obviously talking about Marcus Freeman. It's a big deal. I think that's a big deal.
Vince took my keyword in his last kind of sentence there. I think the biggest thing that this continuity provides is trust amongst the coaching staff, right? You want to be able to trust people in those kind of, crucial situations that, they're going to, make the right play make the right call. You're going to trust them. You're going to trust, what they have kind of planned, on the offensive side, the defensive side of the ball. I think this is even more important because of, where Marcus Freeman is at in terms of his coaching career. This is year 3. You got to have, and it's a big year, no matter what program you're at, there's really no more excuses that you can use, right? As a head coach, you're now in year 3. You have a cycle of your guys, your coaching staff, everything is yours now. All of the blame, I guess you could say, at the end of the day is on Marcus Freeman because he's making the decisions with all of this. And so I think in terms of continuity, if you want to, if that's the kind of pressure that's going to be on you, you want the continuity and the trust that your coaching staff is going to have your back in those crucial situations.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, I think Vince, you made some really good points just with the messaging and things like that. But I also feel like just like from the fact that these guys know each other, like that's got to make things easier in a lot of different ways. And like when Mike Denbrock and Gino Guidugli have that familiarity, they've already worked together on game day. I think that there's got to be something to that. And when you're talking about, again, like what, the points that you're trying to make that Gino Guidugli can reinforce to the quarterback specifically from a guy like Mike Denbrock. And it's like, have you guys been able to see any of the Peacock, the Here Come the Irish series so far?
I have the IB login, but I haven't had a chance to actually log in. So that's on my to-do list actually for it's not a secret. We're recording this on Friday, but for tonight after high school football, that's my plan. I'm at least going to watch one episode and then maybe the next one tomorrow morning.
I feel like you're not going to be able to stop. I think you're going to roll right into the next one.
You're probably.
I think the first one's going to fire you up, and you're like, I got nothing else to do.
You're probably right.
Kicking. I got to watch this next one.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I did watch episode 1, and I thought it was pretty good. I didn't just roll right into the next one, but there was some Mike Denbrock. Most of the practice footage, it looked like, came from spring practice that they were using, but just some of the bark from Mike Denbrock.
Love it.
Which I do as well. And I think these guys, I think that they have responded to some of that hard coaching that they've got. But again, like it helps when Denbrock has familiarity with the other assistants because like he can be sort of the hard guy.
Yeah.
And they can be, it's like the mom and the dad, you play different roles or, good cop, bad cop. Yeah, yep. Exactly. That kind of stuff. But these guys understand because they've been with Mike Denbrock before, just like they've now been with Marcus Freeman for a couple of years and so on. So I think there's absolutely something to it.
Just to kind of add on there, as a former player, and kind of, a situation I'm dealing in with work right now, it's like, I respect. I'm okay with the bark if I respect you. If you've got the accolades to back it up. Mike Denbrock's coming off an offense where the guy just won the Heisman and they put up a ton of points in the SEC, right?
Yeah, carries a lot of weight.
That's respect. And so when you're your manager or your offensive coordinator, your head coach is barking at you, to me it's a respect thing because you take that and it should motivate you, right? Because you have respect for that person, and you're like, okay, well, this guy knows what he's talking about. Like, so I need to do my part and make sure that, I'm not letting the team down so we can succeed at the highest level.
So let's just go ahead and talk about the offensive line, because we kind of touched on it, a minute ago. And you obviously have an all new offensive line. None of the starters, yeah, none of the starters are the same as last year. You're not only losing 2 NFL offensive tackles, you obviously lost one of the replacement tackles, and out of the blue, here comes Sam Pendleton, and you've got Anthony Knapp out there on the left side. So just give me a word, Jesse, that describes how you feel about this line. One word going into this opener.
One word.
One word. No adjectives.
No adjectives. That's hard. I'm a man of many words. I'm honestly,
yeah, I've noticed.
I'm just gonna have to go with unproven, because I don't want to say anything that takes away from their potential or something that would maybe, discredit the talent that's there. But it's just unproven to me, because I think that the potential is there and the talent is there. And I've said this kind of earlier on shows this week, like, I trust what the coaching staff is deciding to do. They've been out there for all the practices. They put together different combinations. And to me, it's like, until they go out there and prove, what they're made of, what they can accomplish, that's the word I have to go with. Because, again, I think all of the talent is there. And I think something fun to think about with this one is, too, is, even if, say, Jagasaw doesn't get hurt, is Knapp the guy that takes over on the other side? Do we see Jagasaw and Knapp both playing? Because it sounds like the guy's had such a good camp that, like, it was hard to keep him off, right? So it's like, that to me is like, I don't think this would be as much of a conversation if Jagasaw didn't get hurt. And I almost want to think that both of those guys might have been playing together in this, this opening game. So that's kind of where I'm at with the situation.
That's actually a really good point, and none of us have brought that up, at any point since this happened. Like I've mentioned, like, we're not even talking about the fact that Emil Wagner, who is a question mark even coming out of spring, wasn't going to be Baker or Wagner over there. We're not talking about the fact that Emil Wagner is still making his first career start, and there's a lot of questions that come with that. As good a camp as Knapp had, could he have even overtaken Emil Wagner over there on the right side, the way it turned out?
I just think that's the kind of the angle. Like, we could have potentially saw a Jagasaw and Knapp. Sorry.
You're good. My one word is anticipation. I'm both, like, I don't know what to expect, because we saw nothing in fall camp. Like, we saw nothing. Correct. To be honest. Like, I can watch guys go through drills and they could be practice All-Americans and it means nothing, right? And we saw a lot of 5-period practices where we saw nothing. So I have a lot of anticipation. Look, all 5 of these guys are Marcus Freeman recruits, right? I mean, we know there's talent there. We don't know how they're going to gel together as a group. There's going to be mistakes, but there's also going to be some really good plays. I mean, that's what I'm anticipating. And it's, what are the mistakes? Are the mistakes, hey, he didn't get this one block, so he only picked up 5 yards? Or is it a complete whiff and Riley Leonard gets blown up and he turns the ball over? You know what I mean? Like, what kind of mistakes are they going to be? Of course, we don't want the latter, but it's anticipate. I'm anticipatory of what this is going to look like on Saturday night on the road, first time together. Let's see what they've got. You know what I mean? Like, that's where I'm at when it comes to this offensive line. And yeah, it's the biggest question mark on the team. There's no doubt about it. But I think it's also fun to figure out, hey, let's see this talent on the field and actually being able to lead this team and do the things that they need to do. They just need to be solid. They don't need to be the Joe Moore Award winning offensive line in game 1. They don't need to be that. Just be solid. I don't want to talk about you in the game. Like, that's where I want the offensive line to be.
Yeah. My word is unknown. And I mean, you guys have pretty much covered everything. I mean, it's just, it's unknown exactly what we're going to see from it. But, again, like, I saw a tweet from Nicole Auerbach, who's covered college football for a long time, and she talked to Marcus Freeman. I think she's with NBC Sports now. She talked to Marcus Freeman, and he just said what he has said, that Anthony Knapp and Sam Pendleton, they feel like give them the best chance to win this game. And, I'm kind of paraphrasing what he said. They give them the best chance to win this game. They could have just gone the old familiar route. Like, we know who these guys are. They've got a little bit more experience, but they feel like these guys give them the best chance to win the game.
Right.
Again, like, I think this is more than just Joe Rudolph's decision. I think that Mike Denbrock and Marcus Freeman, because of the importance of this game,
Right.
I think they factored into this decision quite a bit. All three of these guys with the decision to do this.
Well, look, I've never met a coach, at least one that is respectable, who will play a kid if they don't think that gives them the best chance to win a game. You know what I mean? Like, I've met plenty of coaches who play kids that probably shouldn't be playing because they give you the best chance to win, like from a behavior standpoint or whatever. Like, I don't care. He gives me the best chance to win. Like, coaches are going to put the players on the field they think give them the best chance to win. Nobody's out there being like, well, I like him better, so he's going to get – that's just not what you do. You know what I mean? And so they believe that this is what gives them the best chance to win. And if that's what they believe, then I've got to be there and be along with them at this point. Now, I'll be judgmental if it doesn't work, but at this point, I will trust the coaches at this point, just not blindly. Let's see what the outcome looks like. You know what I mean? But I'm excited about it. I think this offensive line is going to surprise some people.
I think it will too, but again, it's unknown, so I can't say for sure. But I don't feel like they're putting Anthony Knapp, a true freshman, in a road environment like this if they don't think that he's the absolute best option going into this game.
Agreed.
So, okay, let's flip it a little bit. Let's kind of start. We're going to get specifics on Texas A&M here in a second, but in terms of this game and what's at stake today, if Notre Dame loses this game, do they still have a path to the playoff? What do you think, Vince?
Yes, they still have a path, but obviously that margin for error is razor thin. I mean, right? I mean, look, I think an 11-1 Notre Dame team is in the playoff. No matter what else happens, I think 11-1 gets them in the playoff, okay? 10-2, they're going to need some help. Like, that's how I see this thing playing out. Now, who knows what's going to happen around them and across the country and all of those, different scenarios. Okay, fine. I can get on board with that. 10-2, they got a chance at sneaking in and maybe the 10 or 11 seed, that kind of a deal. 11-1, I think they're in. Where they're seated remains to be seen, but I think that they're in no problem. And they're probably hosting at 11-1. So if they lose game one, that means they got to go 11-0 to finish off the season.
Right. And that's the thing. That's the thing. Your margin for error obviously completely disappears. I do think there's a path to the playoff at 11-1.
Right.
Getting in, people will still hold it. Well, you lost your toughest game, because that's probably that. Could be what this turns out to be, because there's just no meat on the schedule really when you look at the entirety of it. But you're absolutely right. They rip off 11 straight wins after that. People will largely forget about Texas A&M, and I think they're in. Just like, like the Desmond Howard comment we talked about earlier this week. He says if Notre Dame wins this game, they are in the playoff. Well, there's still a lot of football to be played over the course of those next 11 games.
I would love for them to be crowned as a playoff team after game one. That would be great. It would give us a lot less to talk about over the next 2.5 months. But, I mean, look, if they win this game, then I obviously really like their chances, because I do think – and it's funny that you bring this up, Sean, because I hadn't really thought about it before. I do think this could be their toughest game, because it's on the road. It's the SEC. There's a lot of talent there. I think Mike Elko is a really good coach. And I do also think that A&M is going to get better and better as the season goes on. And a win for Notre Dame only makes that look better and better for them on their resume as the season goes on, right? Mm-hmm. So I think this very well could end up being their toughest game, followed maybe by Florida State. But after what happened to Georgia Tech, I mean, who knows? But at least that's at home, right? So, I mean, it's a different environment. So Notre Dame still has to prove that they can be dominant away from home. And outside of the first round, they're going to be away from home in the playoffs. So this is a big test for them.
I'm back, gentlemen. I had to take a very important phone call. They have decided to total my car, and that is best case
Nice.
scenario.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. It
Congratulations
is.
on getting your car totaled. That
Yeah.
means it gets a
No, but
bigger
it's
insurance
best.
check. So
It's best case scenario with this freaking car. I'm just glad to have it off my hands, and now I have an excuse to get a nice new car.
Jesse, I'll just go to you with this next question, so we don't get hung up on your. We'll touch on the car next week.
Oh,
You know, once we
100%.
once you're back, and we can get into more of those details. Irish were 3-2 on the road last year, and of course, you know, like started off slow against NC State before winning a lopsided game there. Came right down to the wire against Duke before they won that, but then they turned around, laid an egg the next week at Louisville, and the Clemson loss as well. So when you look at their performance on the road last year, how important does it make this game to open up the season?
Yeah, I think it's honestly the most important aspect kind of this season. They only have, what is it, like 3 true road games this season. This is obviously the most important one, and something that has been brought up before, and kind of, if you did an audit of Marcus Freeman's kind of coaching tenure, this is one of those things that would get flagged in the audit. His ability to play well on the road, and I don't know how much you can blame Marcus Freeman, because his job is, yes, to get the team prepared, right? But in Louisville against Clemson, to me, it was inept offense. And so the defense is going to be the backbone of this team.
Inept offense and turnovers along with that. But
yeah. And I think a lot of that gets, just to be blunt, I think a lot of that gets fixed with, someone who's going to be a more diverse quarterback. Maybe the better word is a dual threat, a guy who can also problem solve on his feet if the passing game isn't going well. And to be honest, a more qualified offensive coordinator too. I think that when you run into tough situations on the road, having a Mike Denbrock in your corner to problem solve and to get out of the hole is going to go a long way. And again, that's nothing against Jared Parker, but it's year one for him compared to an experienced offensive coordinator who can, find ways again to, problem solve, have a solution, maybe try something different when things aren't going well.
Well, and the difference for Mike Denbrock in his current situation as opposed to his most recent situation, and trying to problem solve and score points and do all of those things, he's going to have a hell of a defense to help him out, where he did not have that at his last stop, right? And so, look, Mike Denbrock has been at all levels, right? He has coordinated many a game where he might have had less talent than the other team and found a way to win based on scheme and things like that. There's a lot of talent to play with here at Notre Dame. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at, because of the fact, like you said, Jesse, there's not a lot of road, the amount of road tests after this. You're going to open the season on the road. You're going to close the season on the road against USC. Who knows what USC will be at that point? They'll probably have a pretty good offense. What they'll be defensively, who knows? But otherwise, there's like, you're largely judged by how you perform on the road against good opponents on the road. And, and again, it was very shaky last year. And based on the national perception of what so many people think is going, the outcome is going to be in this game, I think it's a huge straw in your cap if Notre Dame does end up going on the road and winning this game. Like, that'll go a long way, I think. And, just in terms of what people think, because they just think that Notre Dame is walking into this unwinnable situation, it feels like.
But you know what? They need a good, solid, marquee road win. They just do. They don't have a whole lot of those in their back pocket right now. And obviously, I'm not talking about this year. I'm talking about in the last decade. They just don't have a lot of those, right? And so those aren't all Marcus Freeman's fault, because he wasn't always the head coach. But at the same time, I mean, they went to Ohio State. They didn't get it done. They went to Clemson. They didn't get it done. They've gone on the road in hostile environments, and they haven't gotten it done, right? That's the end. That's the be-all, end-all. This is a chance to say, look, we went on the road to a place where a lot of people didn't think that Notre Dame could win, and they won. And they won convincingly, whatever that looks like, right? That's a huge piece to this whole, Marcus Freeman era puzzle in my opinion. I mean, this is a game that I think we can look back on. If they do what I think they're going to do, we're going to be able to look back on this and be like, that was huge for Marcus Freeman. Yeah.
Does how they play in this game, do you think that it truly tells us where this program is under Marcus Freeman?
I mean, I don't want to put a whole lot of pressure on it, but yeah, to a degree I do. Absolutely.
You have to take advantage of the situation because Texas A&M as a program isn't where you should be at year 3 in your program.
Yes, agreed. Texas A&M is in year 1 after a disaster. Jimbo Fisher was a disaster. I mean, it just did not go well. They recruited well for obvious reasons. A lot of those guys aren't there, right? They're not where Notre Dame should be right now. And Notre Dame needs to go in there and they need to prove it. So
I can live with, the road loss to Ohio State to kind of, kick off Marcus Freeman's career. Like that was a tough game. I can't live with, the sloppiness that they did against Clemson, that they did against Louisville. You weren't playing your best football.
No,
you need to play your best football. And if the cards don't fall your way, then the cards don't fall your way. But you can say you played your best football. That's not the case last year. I felt like there were missed opportunities last season because they weren't playing their best football.
And we're obviously, again, this is year 3. So you need to be past any, we can feel good about ourselves for performing well on the road against a good opponent and all that kind of stuff, like maybe you did a little bit against Ohio State a couple of years ago. And obviously it didn't work out the next week against Marshall or a few weeks later against Stanford. But like there's no moral victories right now. Right. And again, like going back to that Peacock show, they showed some of Marcus Freeman bouncing around the country, talking to some of the Notre Dame clubs, and the year 3 thing came up, the success of year 3, Parsegian and Devine and Holtz, of course, all won championships in year 3. And Brian Kelly even,
went to a
championship game and had a perfect regular season.
Didn't end well.
So, but still, I mean,
he went there.
Yeah.
Look, if this team goes,
and again, this roster is in better shape. This roster, I think, is even better shape than what Kelly had in 2000. Like he had some, some really good front end players.
Sure.
But I think again, like when you just look at the overall roster, like I was talking earlier this week about Kavari Russell. Like Kavari Russell, one of the starting cornerbacks in 2012, was a high school running back who had to start at corner as a true freshman because of where the roster was.
Right. He wouldn't sniff the field on this team. He wouldn't. I mean,
not with Christian Gray and Benjamin Morrison out there.
Not a chance. And look, that team had a really good defense, right? But the offense was, a struggle, right? That's not going to be the case this year. It's just not going to be the case. So this team has more of an opportunity. And I'm not in any way saying they're going to go undefeated. I'm not saying they're going to win the national championship. But if they go to the national championship game in year 3 of Marcus Freeman's tenure, this program has turned the corner, right? Because it's a heck of a lot harder to get to the national championship game in 2024 than it was in 2012.
So I was going to talk about the, Riley Leonard, Mike Elko. I'm just going to skip that because I feel like we've talked about it enough this week.
Fair.
There's a connection there. Elko's a good head coach. He knows his strengths and weaknesses. Okay, but Mike Denbrock, I think he's going to put Riley Leonard in, the best position to make some plays himself. And Riley Leonard, because the kind of playmaker he is still going to make plays, regardless of if Elko knows him, has familiarity with him or not. I said I wasn't going to talk about it, and then I just talked about it. Vince, you look like you had something to say, though. So.
I mean, look, I don't. I think the connection between those two is a little bit overblown. To be honest with you, it's a great story to write, which is great. Exactly. I'm sure that ABC will show them dabbing each other up during pregame, that kind of stuff. And they'll talk about it. But Mike Elko knows Riley Leonard, cool. But Riley Leonard also knows Mike Elko, so it is kind of a two-way street there to a degree. Like Riley Leonard went against Mike Elko's defense the whole time he was there. Right? I mean, that's true. So he kind of knows what to expect from a schematic standpoint. And of course, Mike Elko is going to throw some wrinkles and do some different things, but Riley Leonard knows Mike Elko's defense, right? Just as much as Mike Elko knows the tendencies of Riley Leonard. At the very least, it's a wash in my personal opinion, because look, Riley Leonard's not coming to this thing empty-handed either. He's got Mike Denbrock in his back pocket. So that kind of changes the feeling for me. So it's a cool story, but I don't think it has a whole lot to do with this game.
Yeah, I'm gonna echo a lot of what Vince just kind of said. It's a story. That's what it is. When the game starts, there is no true same situation. Like this is a completely different situation than when Elko was at, Duke and the players he had and the defense that he put together. It's a completely different defense, and Riley Leonard is now in a completely different offense. So it's like, to me, it's a storyline, but nothing is ever the same in college football. So these are two completely different scenario situations that these guys are in now. And they're going to go head to head. And really, that's it. Might there be some small things here or there? Like, might Riley Leonard come to the sideline and communicate with, Gino Guidugli and Mike Denbrock and say, hey, here's what I'm seeing. I know this kind of as a tendency. That's the only thing I can really see out of it, right? Just small, maybe tidbits here and there that, that each of them kind of be like, well, I know that's what each other likes to do, or this is what we can maybe expect in a situation like this. That's it for me.
Again, I said we weren't going to talk about it. We spent at least 3 minutes talking about it.
Here we are. Well, good.
That's all right. We got it out of the way.
We got nothing but time.
Yes.
Yeah. You throw curveballs, we're hitting them out of the park. All right.
Let's talk about something that I think is a little bit more interesting, and that's the other side of the ball in Texas A&M's offense. They hired Mike Elko hired Collin Klein from Kansas State, had a really successful offense there. Will Howard, the former Kansas State quarterback, big guy, thrived in that offense at Kansas State. Sounds like he was going to get beaten for the job, and that played a part in him transferring to Ohio State. But Collin Klein is at Texas A&M now. Jesse did a great whiteboard breakdown on his offense with some specifics the other day. A very 12 personnel driven team or scheme traditionally. 30 seconds. I'm going to put you on the clock. Give us your best boil it down breakdown of what we should expect from Collin Klein's offense. Go.
I would say a lot of eye candy, trying to confuse a young try to confuse a young linebacker group where assignment sound football is going to be key. You just have to stay true and trust your instincts. Slow to go flow. Don't feel like you got to make the play now. Again, just kind of stay slow, trust your eyes, trust the process, and just don't bite for it. Just see what you see at the end of the day, because he's going to try to do stuff to trick you.
It's very good. I don't know if you hit exactly 30 seconds. I started my watch a little bit late.
It was slightly under. It was slightly under. So good job.
Give you a little bit of pressure and you responded. Like
rest.
It's like game reps. All these practice reps. All these practice reps have got you
paid off.
I got to be in my best version for the countdown show.
So we had Texas A&M insider Carter Curls on the show this week because I think pretty much everybody had Carter Curls on the show this week. He was literally the most popular podcast man in the land in this neck of the woods.
Good because for Carter Curls.
I mean, Carter. That's exactly. I was going to say that. Like, give him props because he was on virtually everyone's show up here, but he didn't have to. He could have told any of us no, but he told everybody yes. It looked like so. Good for Carter being a good sport and taking up probably a good 2-3 hours of his week, at least doing some of the interviews this week. But my point, Carter doesn't seem to have a whole lot of faith in A&M's offensive skill players based on what he told me. Here's how he thinks the offense is going to try to operate this season.
I think you're going to see more of an offense that methodically moves the ball down the field, stays ahead of the chains, and doesn't get into, third and long, has more of a third and manageable, tries to limit turnovers, tries to limit penalties, and just tries to be that efficient third down offense that has these long extended drives to give their defense a rest and kind of grind out these games. We saw Notre Dame kind of had a similar style a few years ago with Ian Book being the plus game manager for them. I think that might be the plan here. Maybe if you look back at some of the A&M teams in 2020 and 2021, that's kind of what they did. They weren't this explosive offense. They methodically drove it down the field, and then their defense took care of the rest, and you know, the offense took care of the football. So I think that's going to be what you kind of see. Conner Weigman so far, he's only thrown 2 career interceptions through 8 starts versus 16 touchdowns. So he's somebody that's not careless with the football and can do that sort of offensive style. So I think that's what you'll probably see from them.
Vince, I'll start with you. Slow, grind it out, you know, grinding possessions, move it down the field. If that is the mode of operation, how effective do you think that can be against Al Golden and his defense?
I don't think that that's an effective way to go about defeating Al Golden's defense. I mean, they can give that a shot, and it might work for a few first downs, but I just don't see that being a successful game plan moving forward. You know what I mean? I just feel like Notre Dame's defense is too good, and they're going to put Texas A&M in some long situations, some second and long, third and long situations that they're going to have to convert on. And you know, just moving the chains and doing that is not conducive to being in a bunch of third and long situations. And I think they will end up being there, right? So I don't think that's a great way to go about it. But obviously, as somebody who be not rooting for the Aggies, I think go for it, man. See how that works out against this defense. But I don't think that's the way to travel.
If I'm Notre Dame's defense and I hear that, I'm just mwah. I am ready to pin my ears back and create havoc. Like that is blood in the water if you're Notre Dame's if that clip is played for Notre Dame's defense, because you can't expect that going against what we all consider, you know, minimum top 10, probably top 5 defense that's going to be in the country, right? Like that cannot be your mindset. And so just a couple of things to hit on. That doesn't remind me more of an Ian Book. That reminds me of the Drew Pine season for Notre Dame a couple years ago, right? Like they knew what their ceiling was with him at quarterback. They had to find ways to have long drives, can't turn the ball over, got to be able to stay ahead of the chains, you know, those sort of situations. They didn't have a true, you know, wide receiver threat outside of Michael Mayer. That more so reminds me of that team. And again, to me, kind of going back to what I was just talking about, this makes the misdirection that Collin Klein is going to present even more of value, right? Because what's going to happen is they're going to get in situations where they got to find ways to manufacture yards, and that's to trick a defense to, you know, do whatever you can to squeeze out those extra yards. And so, again, I just think that plays in such favor for Notre Dame because their defense should just have a field day, and I don't think Texas A&M is really going to have much success scoring the ball.
I agree. I feel like the way you're going to beat Al Golden's defense, and we've seen this in the games where he's given up some points. You know, again, Louisville and Clemson, they both scored over 30 points against Notre Dame last year. You can't put it all on Golden because Notre Dame's offense just was not a willing participant in those games. You know, like when you keep giving those teams the football and, you know, like as many turnovers as they had in those games, that contributes to it. But, you know, like even look at Ohio State, you know, Notre Dame, Al Golden in that defense contained Ohio State for most of the night, but it was really a couple of chunk plays that turned out to be the big difference. The Travion Henderson run was obviously the huge one, but then also, you know, the pass that got him down to the goal line that set up the ultimate game-winning touchdown as well. You know, like a couple of chunk plays. That's what you're going to have to make. You're going to have to hit explosive plays against Al Golden's defense if you want to win. I just don't see ball control, grind it out being the answer. So, you know, be curious to see if that's really the case, if that's the direction that they go. But, you know, again, like Jesse, with some of the whiteboard stuff that you did, you know, like Collin Klein wants to get the defense moving in one direction and then try to hit you with something going the other direction. So I think that they're going to try to make plays, but you know, again, like if you don't have that much confidence in the skill talent around your quarterback and you're matched up against Notre Dame's defensive line and against Notre Dame's secondary, I think that is
good luck.
That is a big check mark in Notre Dame's favor.
Yep.
And again, I think like Notre Dame's secondary is something that's not talked about enough.
Well, and that's
you've got 2 freaking All-Americans back there.
That's the embarrassment that we were talking about kind of to kick off this show is like how can some of these national people just not take that into consideration? Like, it's the best aspect of Notre Dame going into this season with how many question marks there are on the offense side of the ball. Like, Notre Dame's defense is going to be the shining point in this game, and it's what's going to win them the game ultimately.
I agree. Conner Weigman, Texas A&M's quarterback. Weigman. I still don't know how to say his name correctly, but
Doesn't
You could
matter.
just do W, like our
Yeah,
friends over at
that's it.
ESPN.
Conner W. That's right. Former 5-star recruit, 8 career starts, 9 career games that he's played, 16 career touchdown passes, 5 of those, by the way, against New Mexico last year. Any initial thoughts you have on him before I play a cut from Carter about Conner?
He's a solid quarterback. I mean, he's going to make some plays. He's got some ability with his legs that, I mean, you don't want him to get out of the pocket because he can move the chains, but he's not dynamic with his legs by any stretch. He's got arm talent. I mean, there's no doubt about that. We'll see if the guys around him can make some plays. I think that's the biggest question mark.
I think, obviously he was a solid recruit. Jimbo Fisher got him to come there to the SEC, to Texas A&M. Like, the guy's going to be a solid recruit. I don't think he has any. He does. To me, he doesn't have anything worthy of the resume. Like, he had some touchdowns in a few games, hasn't been able to play a full season. You know what I mean? It's not like he's played. This Notre Dame's going to be the best opponent he's ever played. So I think this is maybe more of a true evaluation. But like Vince said, his biggest strength as a quarterback to me is his arm. There is not a throw that he probably can't make on the field. It's just, does he have, are they going to be able to scheme guys open against Notre Dame's, very talented secondary?
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, that's the thing is he even going to have, areas or zones to throw the ball to, or is Notre Dame just going to completely, lock that kind of thing up? And then to kind of finish this thing off, to go back to how Klein operates his offense, he's got to be able to do stuff with his legs. He's got to be able to pick up some first downs here and there. And those misdirection plays, Klein likes to get his quarterback on the perimeter with 2 lead blockers, usually a tight end and an H-back, right? So he's got to be, in my opinion, show that he is capable of at least moving the chains, picking up, maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 runs a game where they're crucial though, enough to get first downs, stay ahead of the chains, that sort of situation.
I don't disagree. He has 160 career rushing yards in his 9 games, and that'll just lead me right into Carter's comments on Conner Weigman.
You also see him run the quarterback a lot at Kansas State with Will Howard and Avery Johnson. Well, at A&M, Conner Weigman, not really a run-first guy, but definitely mobile. So that's one of the aspects we haven't been able to see in practice since the quarterbacks aren't live. But if you look at him, he's gained a little bit of a weight. You just kind of get the sense that A&M may run the quarterback a little this season, which, after all the injuries they've had the last few years, some people might say, I don't know about that. I think they think of, hey, if we can just add one extra element in the offense and while keeping this guy safe, why not do it? Because I think you look at this offense, there's not a ton of star power at the skill positions. Not a lot of proven guys. No one who's had a 1,000-yard receiving season. No one who's had a 1,000-yard rushing season. So I think that this is not going to be an offense that is highly explosive and throwing the ball all around the field and having 40-yard gain after 40-yard gain. I think you're going to see more of an offense that methodically moves the ball down the field.
So again, I listened to those comments from Carter, who has seen this in person, and and he knows what Collin Klein's offense looks like, and Jesse has talked about it. I don't. Being able to put this game on Conner Weigman's shoulders and say, "Go get him, big boy," against Al Golden's defense. That just doesn't seem like a recipe for success to me, because, and then to go back, he's a 5-star recruit. And I think some of that plays into some of the evaluations that you hear about this guy as well. But again, he's played in 9 games. He's completed 76% of his passes against group of 5 teams versus 56% against Power 5 teams. and he's going against Al Golden's
Yeah.
defense, which was a top 10 defense last year.
Well, and arguably one of the two best secondaries in all of college football. So, again, if that's their game plan, awesome. If they're going to try to run like power with the quarterback and get them outside with lead block, go for it, because Notre Dame also has a very athletic, set of linebackers. And if they're good at something, it's coming downhill and making plays, right? I mean, I think if you're going to get these linebackers out of position in the pass game, or something like that, maybe some run fits, but don't try to run outside, because they're going to chase you down. Like I think you're playing into the strengths of Notre Dame if you're going to put the entire game on Conner Weigman. Like I don't think that that's really the way to go. But if you're Collin Klein and you're looking at this thing objectively and you're like, okay, looking at my offense, I had a running back go down. I'm not super enthusiastic about my offensive line. Like, what do we do? You know what I mean? Okay, let's put it on the shoulders of the 5-star and see what he can do for us. So I think that they probably think it's a great way to go about it, but I also think it plays into the hands of Al Golden.
You guys are just convincing me to double down on this money line. The more we talk about it, the more I'm like, man, why don't I just kind of up the ante a little bit more?
Here's a final comment from our old buddy Carter Carls on what he thinks the keys to this game will be.
I think it comes down to their skill positions. Can one of their receivers get 100 yards and really show up? Can Le'Veon Moss have a really impactful day on the ground? And if it's wet conditions, can he have almost 100 yards on the ground? And then certainly A&M's defensive line will play a big role. If your defensive line gets 5 sacks in a game, it really doesn't matter what anyone else does. Like take it over up front. Nothing else really matters, and that could certainly be in play for this Aggie defensive line. So I think it could all start with them for sure.
Okay, so if that's what it's dependent on, Jesse, an A&M receiver or running back having a big game, what's your confidence in a Notre Dame win?
I'm extremely confident because, this is a inexperienced wide receiver group against a very good Notre Dame secondary. And I mean, you can say the same thing about Notre Dame's wide receiver room. Very inexperienced, right? Not a lot actually proven, not a lot of sustained success, but definitely a lot of talent and potential there. But on the flip side, Texas A&M secondary is nowhere near where Notre Dame's secondary is, right? So and I think Notre Dame's wide receiver room is far more talented than Texas A&M's wide receiver room. So to me, I kind of have to disagree. I think this game solely comes down to the trenches. Is Notre Dame's offensive line able to hit and push and hold their own as a young inexperienced offensive line against like Carl said, like it's going to be a good Texas A&M front. Like that is not going to be a question, right? And then on the flip side, Notre Dame's defensive line just has to create havoc. Put pressure on a young quarterback that doesn't have a ton of experience as well. So to me, the key to this game is the trenches and how well Notre Dame's young offensive line can, come together.
If Texas A&M is going to win this game, I think Carter is absolutely correct. One of those guys is going to have to go off.
Right.
I just don't think it's going to happen. I mean, that's the bottom line, right? I don't see this being like a balanced offensive attack. Somebody's going to have to go off for them to be as successful offensively as they're going to need to be to win this game. So if we, in the post-game show and when we fire it up, we're talking about a Notre Dame loss, it's going to be, wow, did you see the game that so-and-so had for Texas A&M? They won the game for them. Like that's just the only avenue I see for them to score enough points to win.
I think so too. I agree with what Jesse's saying about the trenches, and you do have, again, Texas A&M's offensive line is at least more experienced than Notre Dame's offensive line, but I don't think they are a great offensive line. They have their defensive line, which is supposed to be their strength, does have a question mark in the middle, and that's where Notre Dame's offensive line is strong, in the middle. I just ultimately feel like between these two teams, the offense that makes the more explosive plays is the team that is going to win this game. And I think that is, again, like when I look at the quarterback who has a highlight reel when it comes to explosive plays, see Clemson last year in the season opener, and the other guys that he has around him between both running backs, Love and Price, and the receivers that Notre Dame has. Again, I haven't seen Texas A&M's receivers in person. They have size, but I don't think they have the same kind of speed that Notre Dame has. And Notre Dame is going to be going up against a lesser secondary in Texas A&M. So I feel like the offense that makes the most explosive plays is the team that's going to win this game. And I would put Notre Dame's chances of being at least 3-1 in that category being a very good bet. Like Notre Dame should have a 3-1 advantage when it comes to explosive plays made by the offense in this game.
And that's going to win it for them.
Explosive plays. I feel remorse in saying I can't believe we haven't said Jeremiah Love yet, because he is going to be the definition of explosive plays for that offense. He is going to be the guy that Texas A&M wish they had on their side of the ball. He's going to be, in my opinion, the ultimate difference maker in this game. And again, when you talk about explosive plays, the first name that comes to mind on the offense side of the ball is Jeremiah Love. Jeremiah Love, sorry.
I feel some game props coming on.
I feel like you're right, Vince. Are you guys ready for rapid fire?
Ooh.
First round of rapid fire, baby. Let's go.
Here we go. Countdown to kickoff game day rapid fire. Do you buy or sell this game, starting with Vince, as the biggest of Marcus Freeman's career?
Up to this point, a game that hasn't been played yet, yes. I think the Ohio State game last year was big, and I think the way it played out made it even bigger, probably. But up to this point, I think, in games that haven't been played yet, if he can go win this game, this is a benchmark moment for Marcus Freeman as in his tenure as the head coach at Notre Dame. Like I said earlier, if we look back and they win this game, we're going to look back at this and say, okay, that's where things really got kicked off in the right direction. So this is his biggest game right now.
Yeah, I have to agree with Vince on this one. And again, kind of echoing some of the things I said a little bit earlier, this is year 3 for Marcus Freeman. This is, your most deep roster, your best coaching staff, your probably most talented quarterback. You have to find a way to win this game on this stage and springboard your season to where you need it to be, right? Because a lot of people already view this schedule as, kind of being weak and the true amount of road tests and all that stuff. You have to take advantage of this data point because it is going to be very influential to a lot of people by the time the season is over. And again, it's going to be, I think, what either springboards them towards their national championship run or just another kind of, maybe 10-2 kind of season, right? And as fans, the expectations ratchet up every year with the coach. And so to me, this is his most important game.
Look, you've rebuilt the roster. It's the deepest rosters we've talked about that we can remember in quite some time. There's talent all over the place. There's different length and athleticism and everything else on this roster that we haven't seen in a long time. It has become a modern college football program with the way that it's built. But the bottom line now is you've got to go out and not just beat teams that you're supposed to beat. You've got to beat teams also that you're an underdog against in a road situation like this. Again, I don't equate Texas A&M to an Alabama or a Georgia, like if you're going to Tuscaloosa or Athens or one of those places. But this is still, the world thinks you're not going to win this game. The world thinks you're going to lose this game. You're going into a hostile environment, and you're going into year 3 for Marcus Freeman and all the things that year 3 has been for a head coach at Notre Dame. Last year, that Ohio State game that you mentioned, Vince, was the first opportunity at a signature win for Marcus Freeman. This would be a signature win for him. And again, with a schedule that doesn't have much teeth the rest of the way, this would be huge for Marcus Freeman and this program. So I'm buying that as well. So Riley Leonard's season yardage over under on FanDuel, 2,525 and a half. Over under on that, guys.
Can you give me I don't have my laptop in front of me right now. Can you give me his number, his full season number at Duke? Do you have that on hand?
Over a little over 2,900 that he had 2 years ago, including his bowl game.
Easy
Now remember,
over.
this is a regular season number, so like 26. I think it's right around, it's 26 something that he had for the regular season, but including his bowl game, it was 29 plus. So
to me, well, I want to say easy over, but you got to look at the schedule, right? There might be times where he's not even playing what you would hope, playing in the second half or fourth quarter of these games, right? But you never know. I still just really like the over because of who his offensive coordinator is, the amount of weapons that he's going to have at the wide receiver position. Jaden Greathouse, Chris Mitchell, Jordan Faison, Bo Collins, Jaden Thomas, Jeremiah Love out of the backfield. Like I really like that in terms of fitting into a Mike Denbrock offense. The only thing that has me hesitant is, like I was saying, the potential to get into some of these blowout type situations that you would hope for, and he might not be able to rack up some of those extra yards that might be crucial by the time the season comes to an end. But I'm still going over at the end of the day. Over.
That was a wonderful answer, Jesse. I also am tempted to take the over here, and I think that I would, since I'm, not playing with any money at the present. So I would take the over. I do think that he's going, there's going to be many opportunities for this wide receiving core for yards after catch and things of that nature, right? And I think that Riley Leonard will be the recipient of some big plays where he doesn't even necessarily have to push the ball down the field. I think the players will push the ball down the field for him. You know what I mean? And so while I do think he will push the ball down the field, and I do think he will rack up some yards, it's funny. Like originally I was thinking like 2,600 in that neighborhood would be a good year in 12 games, right? I just, I think he'll hit that. I do. Even in the games where he gets pulled early, I think he's going to rack up those yards in the first half. It might be a full game's worth of yards in the first half against some of that competition. So I feel good about it, and I will take the over on this one.
Yeah, because even you look at if he's in blowout games and those kind of situations, like how that affects his yardage and all that different kind of stuff.
It's only 208 yards a game.
And that's what I was. It's right around I was just doing the simple math in my head. If it's 12 games, 200 yards a game puts you at 2,400 right there. So now you only need 126 more yards, basically. So it's not like a massive number. Now, at the same time, Sam Hartman had a similar number last year, and Hartman only ended up with 2,600. I just think that playing in a more innovative passing offense with the targets that he's going to have around him, I think that ultimately that is going to put him over the top. Because I think, kind of like Jesse was saying, just piggybacking on that, even if they're blowing some teams out in the first half and he gives way and Steve Angeli gets to come in the second half, he's probably going to hit a couple of big pass plays, just like Tobias Merriweather had, on his big pass play last year, So I'm going to go over his running and all that stuff factors into this as well, like how much that takes away from him and everything else. But it just seems like, again, 2,525. It seems to me like 2,600 is a very realistic number for Riley Leonard. So I've got to go over. What about his touchdown number? 19 and a half, and he got 20 for the season in 2022 when he was at Duke. So, I mean, this is like right on that number there.
I feel like you hammered the over on that. I feel real good about that number. I don't think that's going to be a problem in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I actually think this is easier than the passing yards because that boils down to just like 1.5 passing touchdowns a game. Even if he only gets let's say one against, Texas A&M, I think he easily gets 3 against, Miami of Ohio or Navy or, those sort of games, right? I think it's going to balance out. I look at him as more kind of like a 24.5 kind of line at the end of the day. So I think, again, this is easy. Oh, I feel way more comfortable about this one than the passing yards.
Yeah, I've got to go over on this one as well, because just what you mentioned in the 4 games against group of 5 teams, and because they're playing 2 service academies and 2 MAC teams in those 4 games alone, he could have 15 or 16 touchdown passes, just depending on the flow of the game and how things go, So like, or at a very minimum, he could have 12 in those games, and that leaves you 8 other games for him to get, 8 more touchdown passes.
Yeah.
So I just feel like I agree. I think this is a really easy over as well on 19.5.
It's a real shame that Ohio is real lame. I might have to cross
Come on
some state
over.
lines.
Scoot back into Indiana. You're going to have to do it pretty quickly. You're going to have to ride that river over here if you're going to make it.
Come on over.
If you see a blue raft coming down, that's me.
This is not a Vegas number for Jeremiah Love, but we're going to do this over under. He doesn't have one that I could find unless you guys have seen one. 999.5 rushing yards for Love this season.
I would take I'm going to hesitantly take the under on this, just because I think he's going to, if you said combined yards, I think he might hit that, but Jadarian Price is still going to have a role in this offense. He's still going to see his fair amount of touches. I like Jeremiah Love as more as, the all-purpose receiving and rushing type yards, but I just think that it's a very, very cautious line to kind of tread. So I'm going to take the under. I would take the under on that one.
I would take the under as well for that exact reason. I think he is a very versatile back. He's going to get a lot of touches, and he may hit that, but I think the odds are that he is splitting carries because they're both really, really good backs.
Mm-hmm.
And, Jadarian Price is going to get a bunch of touches. Love's going to get a bunch of touches, but there's only so many touches that are going to be had, right? And so I think that's what keeps him under.
Yeah, I agree. I think that 800 is probably his max number, but I put it up, like everyone's very high on Jeremiah Love. So I put it up there at 1,000 to see if anyone thought that he was going to get, like, I wouldn't be surprised if it's Price is the guy who ends up with 1,000-yard rushing season, and Love ends up even somewhere around between 13 and 1,500 total yards, something like that, because of like just what you guys said, the versatility, the all-around play that he's going to have. With Notre Dame, of course, opening at Kyle Field, College Station, Texas. Heat has been a big topic of conversation. What do you guys think? Hopefully this is the last time we ever have to talk about this, but bigger factor, the environment or the heat this weekend?
Oh, it's the environment. I mean, the heat. Okay, like people are making a big deal about the heat. Well, last time I checked, it was hotter here in South Bend this week than it was down in Texas.
It was.
So it's null and void for me. Like it is not a factor in any way. They practiced in it on purpose and they're used to it. It's not even a factor for me. They've been working on, the fluids and the hydration and all of those different things. And then they actually got to practice in the humidity and the heat. Okay. So that part's not an issue for me. So by default, it's the atmosphere of the 12th man, right? And Kyle Field and, the SEC and, all of that. And, look, you came to play major college football. This is what you signed up for. I mean, it's going to be a factor, but I don't think it's going to be the be all end all.
Every time I get this opportunity, I'll always take it. Heat kills bacteria. Only the strong survive the heat. And the thing is, both teams are playing in the heat, right? And I think it's great that it was so hot that we had this kind of mini heat wave this week.
Yeah.
It allows them the proper preparation that they need at the end of the day. So I've said this before, and Vince, I think you can agree with this. Like, you get to a point in the game where your body just doesn't really feel the heat anymore, right? You're just playing. Like, you don't think about the heat. Like, everything's hot. You're all sweaty. Like, it's fine. Yep. You got cool rags. You're going to have fans. You're going to have cold water, Gatorade on the sideline. It'll take care of itself. The only thing I'm worried about in terms of heat is how the body responds. Are you properly hydrated? Do cramps come into play? Exactly. That's the only thing I'm worried about with heat. But environment, man, when you talk about a loud stadium, a young offensive line that's going to be trying to communicate, picking up pressures, an offense, a quarterback that might have to go silent count, a Mike Dimbrack offense where they like to motion. They're going to have to hit their landmarks and know when to motion and that sort of stuff. So to me, that has a far more impact than what the Heat will have.
I completely agree. It's the stadium environment, the Kyle Field Stadium environment. I don't need to rehash any of the the Heat related stuff that you talked about. I'll just throw in the fact that they are using the new helmet headset communications this year, coach to player in the helmet. So are they going to effectively be able to do that when Notre Dame is on offense? Is Riley Leonard going to be able to hear everything? Are they going to have to go to hand signals and all that kind of stuff? So I think it's definitely the stadium factor, the environment factor that's going to be the bigger deal.
I think
fill in the blank. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry. The last thing I'd say about this is the only reason Texas A&M is favored is because they're playing this game at home and the environment that it creates. If they're playing this game in South Bend and it was as hot as it's going to be, you might see the line. The line would be in Notre Dame's favor. The line is switched up because of where they're playing the game at, not because of how hot it's going to be.
I agree. That's a great point.
Yep.
Glad you brought it up. Fill in the blank. It'll be blank if Notre Dame has another 10 men on the field kind of moment this season.
Agonizing. I can't deal with that. I can't. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to have to defend it. I don't want to. I mean, yeah, it'll be agonizing. I just, come on now. Don't do this to me.
I would say detrimental because you just can't do something like that again. It's kind of like your one warning, right? Like we kind of got over it, but if it happens again, that's when it kind of becomes, I think, more detrimental to, people starting to question, is Marcus Freeman cut out to be a head coach? Is he cut out for, making sure that, that sort of stuff, the easy stuff, I would say, is taken care of at the end of the day?
Yeah, it will be coach defining, I think, in the view of public opinion on Marcus Freeman. That's kind of the direction that I was going to go, that where Jesse finished there. It'll be a big referendum on where people think Marcus Freeman is in terms of his fitness to be a head coach. Is this young, charismatic guy, as many good things as he has done for this program in a short amount of time, is he really cut out to be a head coach? If you have that kind of thing again, that's just the way it'll go, especially 2 years. And it doesn't have to be 10 men on the field. I'm just talking about some kind of stupid boneheaded gaffe that is otherwise preventable, that happens in the middle of a game at a crucial moment.
Speaking of kind of coaching fitness, did you guys catch he was on Part of My Take earlier this week, and they gave him the hypothetical, coach, you're 3 minutes left, you're down 2 scores, you score, are you going for 2? And then, basically the whole go for 2 situation, right? You get 2 shots. If you don't get it the first time, you got the second time to get it. But if you get one of them, you end up winning the game. Got a lot of criticism for that because he said he's not going for 2 at the end of the day. So I guess, what would your guys' opinion be if you're the coach in that situation?
You're down by 3 scores. Would you go for 2?
You're down 2 scores. You just went in for your first score. And there's
we're down 16. Are we down 15?
Yeah, I mean, there's a big
14.
difference in
Sorry. All right. You're down 14.
Slow down.
Just scored. There's about 3 minutes left in the game. Are you going for 2, or are you giving the ball back to your defense?
You go for 1 the first time, and then you see you see where you are the second time. You don't chase points early, because then that puts you in a situation where you have to go for 2 the second time. You don't go for 2 on the first touchdown.
Not a chance.
So that's where he was getting a lot of flack, because the analytics say you go for 2 in that situation.
That's dumb. You don't chase points at that point, just like Sean said. You are down 14 points. You're not down 15, where you're going to have to go for 2. If you miss, like you said, then you have to go for 2. I would much rather push it to overtime and have an opportunity to win the game even later. Or if I feel like I've got momentum and maybe I'm on the road, or maybe I have no business being in this game, okay, then you go for 2. But give me that option at the end. Right. You don't even have that option if you go for 2 and miss early.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
That was kind of Marcus Freeman's actual rationale. He said, we get to that situation, the second score, I trust my team in overtime. I trust my roster in overtime comparatively to, whatever's going on. So he has more kind of trust and faith in his team in overtime if it came down to it.
Yeah.
And I like the answer. I don't like the whole go for two as well. I
Look,
think you're thinking too much about it at that point.
There's a place for analytics. It's obviously become a big part of sports that I think, a lot of us don't even think about, that because there's so much of it going on with what the coaches are thinking and stuff like that. But look, Brendan Staley got a head coaching job because of analytics. He's also been fired already because of analytics. How'd that work out for him? Like you have to have some feel for the game as well. I think Marcus Freeman actually does a good job, like with when to go for it on fourth down, some of those things, I think he's done a good job with it. So I hadn't heard that became a thing with his answer to that. So interesting.
Just thought I'd bring it up, just kind of, talking about people's perception of his coaching abilities, I guess you would say.
Sure. So which is more likely to happen in this game? Notre Dame, Texas A&M. 1, Jordan Faison returns a punt for a touchdown. 2, Jaden Harrison returns a kickoff for a touchdown. Or 3, I looked at the wrong. I had it all written out here. Or 3,
James Rendell.
Rendell forces a fumble. I think I had it written down here wrong. That's what was confusing me. Texas A&M fumbles a punt off the foot of James Rendell. One of those 3 things.
It's the third one. James Rendell fumble, forces a fumble on a punt return, that kind of thing, because the ball comes down in such a weird angle. There's no way to practice that. And nowhere has that been put on film yet for them to practice that. Like, they have no idea what's coming their way. And it's super odd and it's super strange. And I think there's going to be a muff in there someplace where Notre Dame could take advantage. I do.
So I'm going to be different, and I don't want to copy what Vince is saying just for the fun of it. I think that Texas A&M will likely might see a punt or two and just get into a lot of Peter situations. Be like, you know what? We don't even want to deal with this. Just get away with the ball. Get away from the ball. Wherever it gets down, it gets down. So I think I'm going to go with a Jordan Faison touchdown at the end of the day, because I think, it's expected. People, they know, if Texas A&M did their due diligence and their homework, they know who Harrison is as a kick returner. He got brought in. He was, a very good player at Marshall. I don't think a lot of people know about Jordan Faison quite yet. I think his shiftiness, his ability to kind of, elude some tackles, his size, I think, plays into it as well, being able to be more elusive. So, again, to be fun and to be different, I'm going to go with the Jordan Faison punt return.
I like the Jordan Faison answer, and I've been thinking about it. Like, when I was writing this question up, I was thinking, I think we're going to see some shiftiness, and maybe he breaks one. He kind of reminds me a little bit of like a Joey Gatherall kind of guy from several years back, just kind of with that size and that wiggle that he's got to him, but I'm going to go with the muff punt thing too. It's something that we've talked about, and having seen the way it comes down, it is very unique. I think that is going to be an issue for some teams this year. It's interesting because when the coordinators, they do it like the Tuesday media availability, all 3 coordinators come out, and someone asked Marty Biaggi about it, and he basically didn't want to talk about it. Like, he didn't want, I don't think he wanted to sort of alert people that it could be an issue from them, because they've never seen this guy, punt over here before. So I like, especially if it's raining out there tomorrow night, Saturday night, like, I could see that being a big,
forgot about the rain
issue. So, yeah. All right. Riley Leonard says his 2 favorite places to eat here in town are Mission Barbecue and Polito's Pizza. Jordan Faison says chicken and waffles at Peg's are his favorite. So my question, where do those 3 places rank for you in terms of local favorites here? Do they register for either of you guys?
So first of all, I don't think I've had Mission Barbecue, if we're being honest. I've always first of all, South Bend, Indiana, if you want barbecue, you're in the wrong place, brother. I'm just going to tell you that right now. And unless you make a
Price Pig isn't bad. Price Pig isn't bad. It's a couple miles from where we live right here.
Good. I like Frankie's. Frankie's that's always good too. A solid option. But again, if we're talking like top tier top end barbecue. There's not a lot in the South Bend, Indiana region.
True.
Pegs, I haven't been to in a while. And again, even if I have gone, I don't think it's maybe once or twice. And then can you say well, you said
Polito's Pizza. Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever had Polito's Pizza. When we're
Really?
talking pizza in South Bend, I'm going with, Barnaby's, Bruno's, that kind of situation. Maybe I've had Polito's because I feel like you guys have tried just about every pizza place in the area. I'm sure I've probably had it at some point.
I actually did some DoorDash
Polito's.
Polito's Pizza because it's not far from where we live now compared to where we used to live. I did some DoorDash during a couple football games last year from Polito's.
Nice. So I guess long story short, I don't know if my answer would have a lot of weight. But if we're
just say they don't register. That's all you got to say.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You don't have to write a book
for me.
God.
Vince?
This one's easy for me. Although we had Mission Barbecue last night, actually, and
you must have went with Brian.
Oh no, it was actually the featured meal at the senior /
that's right. You did the
night.
Okay.
So, which we also helped coordinate. But anyway, it was really good. But at the end of the day, if I'm making a decision on where I'm going to eat, it's Polito's all day, and it's not close. Polito's has amazing pizza. It's a little too far for a drive when I'm just like, hey, I'm going to go pick up a pizza kind of a thing because of the, just the distance. Yeah. But we used to go to Polito's all the time earlier on in our marriage because it was located in a different place.
Right.
But then they moved.
They had a kitchen fire several years ago.
They had a fire, exactly. Yeah. So they had to move. So it got a little bit too far away, but I love me some Polito's pizza. So it's Polito's and it's not close.
Polito's is good. Like I'm not as they've got a New York style and they've also got like a stuffed pizza. And I used to be big on their New York style. I'm much more on their stuffed pizza now. Okay. I really enjoy it. It's like a stuffed with meat and cheese and stuff like that. So, like you said, Jesse, like from a family standpoint, if we're going to like get a pizza, we're more likely to go to Barnaby's, here in town. But Polito's is very solid. Mission Barbecue is not bad, but it's a chain place. I prefer a couple of the local spots that I mentioned just because they're local and not chains. I don't know that I've ever been to Pegs. If I have, it's maybe been once.
Never have.
Yep.
When he said the chicken and waffles, it made me want to maybe check it out.
I don't think I've ever had chicken and waffles.
I don't think I have either. Or maybe once.
Yeah. When I'm going to a breakfast place, that's not high on my list of things.
There's actually
a
place in Syracuse that I saw on Food Network that's like it's like a waffle place, and like they do all different kinds of waffles, and they've got like a chicken and waffle that I really want to try.
Okay.
When I go there with basketball this year, because I haven't tried it so far. If we stay close enough. Okay, let's predict the 12-team college football playoff field.
Oh,
so let's go around. Start with your 4 conference champions. Start with that. It helps when you look at the rundown, Jess. Come on.
No, I know, and I actually suggested this question.
I think you did, actually.
Yeah, he certainly did.
Resources were limited today, and I definitely forgot this was on the queue.
But you got your car totaled, so
you got the car totaled. I'll give the easy ones to start. I like that we're going with the easy ones. Vince, homework. I like that.
Man, Vince is coming. He's just saved that from what he did like a month ago when I told him he did it the wrong way.
Yep, that's exactly what happened. But it's here.
Miami, Georgia, Ohio State, Utah are my 4.
Okay. So you're going out of the box a little bit with Miami as your ACC champ. Okay.
Yeah, you are.
Going hard on Cam Ward. Yeah.
I have no faith in Cam Ward. So Miami is definitely not my ACC champion. I had Florida State, which maybe isn't a great pick at the moment, but we'll see how it all plays out, obviously. But I have Georgia as my 1. I've got Ohio State as my 2. I've got Florida State as my 3, and I've got Utah as my 4.
Okay. So I've got basically Clemson. We've all got somebody different for the ACC. I've got the other 3, though: Georgia, Utah, Ohio State, Clemson. And that's mostly because of the fact that Florida State didn't just lose last week. They lost a conference game right off the bat as well.
I know. And almost out of my mouth. I was like, but conference play hasn't started. But yeah, it did.
Yeah.
And they lost. So they're already
Yep.
fighting an uphill battle. So
Yep. What about your group of 5 team? Who do you think is going to be the best group of 5 team, which will get you into the playoff if you're the highest ranked group of 5 team this year?
this was actually tough for me because it could go any direction. You know what I mean? It's just I picked Memphis. I think at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter who the 12 is because they have to go on the road to the 5, and it's probably not going to be all that close. But I did pick Memphis in this case.
Jess?
Liberty was mine. It came down to Liberty and
Okay.
Boise State. But Liberty is edging it out for me. A little bit more experience, I think, on the national stage, especially of recently.
I went a little bit different direction, and I'm going with Troy as my group of 5 team.
Jared
Look at
Parker
you.
led Troy.
Jared Parker, that's right. He inherited a team that was in pretty good shape, won 11 games last year. So I'm going to say Mighty Troy is the group of 5, the top group of 5 team that'll get into the playoff. Wouldn't that be something if Troy comes to South Bend for a playoff game?
Just to have to head back with an L, but it would be pretty cool. You want to talk about storylines? That would be one of them.
That's right. Okay, so that leaves us 7 other at-large teams.
Yes.
For the playoff. Who wants to go first?
Do you have it ready, Jess? Go ahead.
Yeah, I refreshed my memory.
Okay.
Notre Dame, Texas, Oregon, Alabama, Penn State, Ole Miss.
One more.
I think you got one more.
Yeah, I got one more, but I can't decide who that
My
one
last
is
team
gonna
was
be.
the hardest one, I felt like. Because I've got
I know-
all the other teams that you just named. Notre Dame, Ole Miss, Texas, Oregon, Penn State, Alabama. My last team was the hardest. Before you give yours, Vince, do you have any that are different than those 6?
I have Ole Miss out.
Okay.
So they are not in my 5 because I only have 3 SEC teams, 3 Big 10 teams, 2 Big 12 teams, and 2 ACC teams.
Ooh,
Okay.
two Big
So
12 teams.
so you've got Utah winning the Big 12. Who's your second Big 12 team?
Oklahoma State.
Oklahoma State. Okay.
Yes.
Good pick.
Yeah.
And then another ACC team then?
Clemson.
Clemson. So
Yep.
you've got Florida State and Clemson both making.
Yes.
Okay, so Jesse, your final team is who?
I got to stick to what the common trend is in all of these, and that's SEC biasy. So I'm just going to throw another one in and say our good friend Brian Kelly at LSU.
Ooh. So you've got 5 SEC teams making the playoff in that case.
I do.
I've got
there's
4.
a lot of
which
bias.
I initially didn't have Alabama in, but it's like 12-team field. It would be pretty shocking if Alabama doesn't even make it in a 12-team field.
The SEC is not getting 5 teams in.
I
They're
don't
gonna
think so
beat up
either.
on each other enough that's not going to be the case.
Yeah. I'm going a little dark horse here, and I'm not feeling as good about it because they struggled Thursday night in their opener. But I'm going with NC State. They're a little bit of a trendy pick. I'm going with NC State as a second ACC team
Okay.
to get in. I've only got one Big 12 because Oklahoma State's a pretty solid pick, but I'm just not that confident in most of the teams in that conference. Arizona could actually be a little bit of a dark horse as a second team in the Big 12 as well.
Arizona's a trendy pick. I just don't trust their quarterback. Everybody just loves him so much, and I just don't see it.
All right, let's finish with some game props, some individual, and then we'll pick the winner here at the end. We don't have to spend a ton of time on these. Jeremiah Love, over under 58.5 rushing yards.
Over.
Yeah, he might get that on one play.
Yeah, I'm going over as well, or at least 2 plays. I'm going over as well. Jaden Greathouse, over under 38.5 receiving yards.
Over.
WR1. He's going to have more than that.
He's the most important wide receiver in that offense.
I don't disagree. I'm going over as well. What about Chris Mitchell? His over under 37.5 yards.
This is the classic Chris Tyree dilemma last year. He could get this in one play if he ultimately wanted to. I think he's going to get his shot eventually on some one-on-ones, stretching the field down the sideline. That's going to open up the middle of the field for the rest of the team. He'll get a one-on-one some point, so give me the over.
Yep, agreed.
I'm going to go under. I think that he's going to get a lot of the attention from the secondary because of the season that he had at FIU last year, and the rest of Notre Dame's receiving corps, especially the two Notre Dame, the three returning guys, Thomas, Greathouse, and Faison, who are going to be a big part of the rotation as well. I think it's going to set, especially a guy like Greathouse, like you were alluding to, Jess. So I'm going to go under on, like, he can easily do it in one catch, but I just think he's going to get the bulk of the attention from Texas A&M secondary in this game. What about A&M receiver Moose Muhammad, over under 40.5 yards?
Probably over, because I think they're going to be throwing the ball a lot because they're going to be coming from behind.
Yeah, I mean, again, even if he's got 5 catches, that's still only 8 yards a catch, and he's going to hit that over. Being a focal point of who they're trying to get the ball to, I would just take the over. It's a better bet.
Yeah, I'm going over as well. Don't know exactly who their number one is going to be, just like we don't know who Notre Dame's number one is going to be. It's got to be somebody. So
Yeah.
I put it on Muhammad. Riley Leonard's passing yards over under 201.5 yards.
This one's so hard. I mean, I want to go with the over, but I just don't know. I think his legs are going to be the X factor. I don't think it's going to be his arm. I mean, and I'm not saying he can't do it. I just don't know if he will do it. You know what I mean? So I would stay away from this one, but for the argument, I will take the over, but not by a whole lot.
I'm going to take the under. I think this is more so like a 150 to 180 type range. But he'll make up the difference with his legs. And again, Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price are still going to have a big impact as well on the kind of total yards for the offense.
Yeah, I'm hesitant on this, but I will take the over. I'm like, my thinking is somewhere around 210, maybe 215, something like that, plus about 75, 80 rushing yards to go with it. But I'll go over on Leonard, but again, I'm not confident enough that I would probably just stay away from it. Conner Weigman's number is 230.5 yards.
Under.
I'm going to take the over just because of volume. I think they're going to be throwing the ball a lot, and they may dink and dunk their way to 230. It's not going to translate to points, but he could get some yards.
I'm still going to go under. Like I can see the path that Vince is talking about, like they're chasing points maybe toward the end, and they're throwing it around and stuff like that. But I still hedge toward the under on this. Team point totals in this game were interesting. A&M's over under for their score 24.5 points. Notre Dame's is 21.5 points. So that shows you right there what where Vegas thinks this game is going to be, which is just absurd to me.
I'll take the under for sure on A&M's. We'll get a better idea for my score prediction, and I'm going to take the over on Notre Dame's as well.
Absolutely.
Me too.
We'll see it in my score prediction.
Yep.
100% on all of it.
Exactly. The game over under is 46.5 points. And I guess we'll get to that with our predictions right now. Vince, I'll let you lead it off. What's your prediction for this game?
Well, I have to take the over if I'm going to stick with my prediction, because my prediction is 48 total points. So I guess I got to take the over. If I'm betting it, though, I would probably take the under because I think points are going to be a little bit more harder to come by. But again, my score prediction is over. So I guess I got to stay consistent. Obviously, I would take Notre Dame plus the 2.5. I would also take them on the money line. I've got Notre Dame winning 31-17. You might, to be honest with you, at the end of the day, you might be able to take a touchdown away from both teams, and that might actually be more closer to the truth. But I do think Notre Dame's going to score, and I just don't see A&M. I mean, honestly, I'd be surprised if they put up 17. I feel like a late touchdown, when the game's kind of already been decided, could get them there. That's why I put it. But I think 31-17. That's what I've got.
I'll just say this up front. Any team that gets to 30 wins this game, no matter what. If you get to 30, you win this game.
I agree with that for sure.
I don't think either team is going to get to 30, though. My final score prediction is Notre Dame 27, Texas A&M 13.
Mine's 27-17. So we're all kind of right in that same ballpark. Again, I feel like the offense that makes the most explosive plays is going to win this game. And I think that between Riley Leonard, Jeremiah Love, and the running backs, or the wide receivers rather, and even Mitchell Evans, the tight end that Notre Dame is going to have on the field, Notre Dame is going to have the much better chance to hit some explosive plays against A&M than A&M is against Notre Dame's secondary. Guys, that's going to do it. Game 1 is on the way. We're almost there. Thanks, everybody, for watching or listening. Great to see you guys. Enjoy your Labor Day weekend. Don't forget, Vince and I will be back on Monday for
Victory
the big
Monday.
show. And, of course, there will be a late-night post-game show. Are you going to be part of the post-game show again, Vince?
Oh, I'm hosting the post-game show.
Hosting the post-game show.
Yeah,
Okay.
baby.
That's
Look
right,
at
because
you.
Vince is down there. So, all right.
The star student.
Enjoy the game. Notre Dame, Texas A&M coming up. IB Countdown to Kickoff, and we'll talk to you next week.